Hey, just throwing in a general content warning for self-harm. So, there's your warning. Hey, my name is Shadowsense and you're watching Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York. We just hung out with Hope and D'Angelo in the last couple of episodes. We got into a car crash with Hope, and D'Angelo we think we know who did the Red Hook murders. So, gonna rest up, finish night 11. Hard to believe we're already 11 nights into this. I think this goes up to 14 nights, so we might be encroaching on the end of the game here soon. You know what? Let's go see what Agathon's up to. One more visit to the Chantry of the Five Boroughs, and to Agathon, who's starting to be surrounded by a smell of danger. Ooh, I like danger. One of these nights you'll have to buy something. You reflect as you ring the doorbell of the occult bookstore that serves as Agathon's haven. Perhaps something about the auras or tarot. The same sleep-deprived blonde woman you saw on your first visit opens the door for you. Each kindred has their own servants, and Agathon seems to go for the tired, wicked mom type. Oh, it's you. Come on. Come in, rather. The woman disappears into the back room, even as you close the door behind you. Lacking any better directions, you make your way up the stairs. At first you thought the chanting was part of the ritual soundtrack that plays in the shop even at night. As you reach the second floor, you realize that it's Agathon's voice. You come up just in time to see him standing in the middle of his ritual paraphernalia with his wrist cut open over a wrought iron stand holding a blood-red stone. As Agathon chants, blood drips from the wound in his wrist onto the stone. It looks as if it's absorbed into it. It's probably not a good idea to interrupt blood rituals, so you wait in silence as Agathon finishes. A few minutes later, he opens his eyes and smiles ruefully. I've done so many of these rituals. I hope it's not too off-putting for you. Agathon smears a bit of his own blood over the wound, and you see it close. Looks like he does this so often he barely pays attention to it anymore. I don't mind. We're all vampires here. That we are. Agathon picks up the blood-red stone from its stand. This is a bloodstone. Could be useful. It doesn't seem inclined to elaborate. I wish he would, but, you know, he has his prerogative. Anyway, let's go. He pockets the stone and leads you back down the stairs and outside to his car. Soon you're on your way to Queens and Flushing Meadows, Corona Park. Oh, we've been to this place before. This was where we met that vagrant who tried to attack us. And he was like, this is my turf, stupid Camarilla. Then he got killed. After parking the car, you follow Agathon on foot as he leads you deeper into the park. Coming to a New York park in the middle of the night might have worried you when you were alive, but now it's normal. Even, if someone tries to mug you, it just means you'll have an opportunity to feed. Agathon walks with purpose, as if he knows exactly where to go. You see the Unisphere, a giant metal sculpture of Earth lit up so parkgoers can appreciate it at night. You're not sure how Agathon picks his ritual spot, but he must have a purpose in mind. The sculpture stands in the background, giving his preparations added dramatic weight. Stand watch while I perform a ritual. It'll reveal whether the notes we seek are here. I'll lose control of the incantation if you fail to keep me free of distractions. Doesn't look like there are many people around. You settle in for a boring half hour while Agathon mumbles and makes strange gestures, spilling drops of his blood at regular intervals. From the outside, the ritual is not particularly flashy. Agathon repeats a mantra under his breath and walks with measured steps until he stops and turns around, walking back. It looks as if there's an invisible structure he must follow, unseen patterns and limits governing his movements. As choreographies go, it doesn't look particularly difficult to learn, but you suspect there are hidden dimensions of skill and understanding involved. A lone, drunken woman walks towards you. Hard to say what she's doing at the park. She's a little older, white, dressed like a suburban divorcee. What's your friend doing? He's kinda hot. The woman's words are slurred by alcohol, but she seems to have decided that you are this evening's entertainment. Hey you, stop being weird and talk to me. The woman seems determined to walk past you toward Agathon. This looks like just the kind of interruption that he was worried about. I'm a drink. Agathon is deeply immersed in his ritual, so why not use the time you have constructively? You walk up to the woman from behind, grab her by the shoulders, and sink your fangs into her throat. Blood tinged with alcohol and horniness flows into your mouth as the woman moans from the sudden pleasure of the kiss. Oh, I need to sit down. Just as you lick the wound closed, the woman collapses onto the ground, swaying, trying to sit upright. Suddenly you hear a scream of rage. Startled, you turn around just in time to see Agathon running at the woman on the ground, his expression contorted with hatred. Did the woman make enough noise to interfere with the ritual? That doesn't explain why he's in such a rage. Ooh, this is a tough one. I don't know. Oh, God. Oh, he's so mad, though. Intervene. You step between Agathon and the woman and lift your hands up in an attempt to calm him down. What are you doing? This is not you, Agathon. Agathon looks at you wild-eyed. For a second, you're sure he'll attack you. You see him tensing for a punch. Suddenly, he snaps out of it, shaking his head, looking at the terrified drunken woman in disgust and embarrassment. Thank you. I'm so sorry you had to see that. I don't usually lose control. I know. What was that outburst? It wasn't that woman. That was just a coincidence. Something triggered a ward. We have to go now. Agathon starts running towards his car and you do your best to follow. Usually Agathon drives more carefully than most humans, you know, but now something is different. He's speeding, honking at every car that gets in your way. You're driving towards the Bronx and twice Agathon almost collides with another car. He's clearly not used to driving quickly, but something is overriding his usual caution. He screeched to a stop in front of a red tile apartment building. Agathon jumps out of the car and starts running, leaving you to take the keys from the ignition and close the doors. Oh, why the moon is red. Hang on, let me move my face cam over here. And then, look at the moon. It's fucking crazy. Alright, face cam back. Agathon disappears up the stairs and you follow his agitated shouting. Abuela! It's me, Javi. Javi? Javi? I don't know. Probably Javi. You get to the 5th floor landing after a run that would have left your mortal self winded to find Agathon banging on an apartment door and fiddling with his keyring. A few of the neighbors poke their heads out into the hallway, but nobody intervenes. Agathon finds the right key and slams the door open, running inside. You follow, entering what looks like the home of an old Mexican lady. There are portraits on the mantelpiece and a crucifix on the wall. The apartment smells musty with old age, and you detect a faint odor of vampiric blood. Sylvia! Sylvia, where are you? You come to the living room and find a body covered by a blanket in the corner of a sofa. The television is on, but the sound is off. Looks like a Spanish language channel. Agathon tears at the blanket, pulling it away in a panic. He reveals an old woman waking up in a bleary-eyed confusion. Javi, why are you barging in like this? Who's your friend? You're alive, Abuela. Agathon hugs the old lady and then turns to you. You'll have to introduce myself. I'll check the wards. Something triggered them and I'll have to see if they still work. Sylvia snuggles deeper in her blankets. This is vampire business, isn't it? Always when there's trouble, it's the vampires. You stare at her startled. Clearly the masquerade hasn't held in this household. Let's be a little lighthearted about it, you know? Yeah, exactly. Frankenstein is not far behind. Anyway, I'm Shadow. You must be his grandmother. Frankenstein is not real. He's made up by the people in Hollywood. Actually, he was made up by Mary Shelley when she was 19 years old. This is about the girl who came to visit. I can tell. Javi was never good at keeping secrets, so much like his mother. You hear Agathon rummaging around the small apartment, almost as if he's scratching at something on the walls. He's always doing that, writing on the walls with blood, making runes. I tell him to cover them with the photos and paintings, but he won't listen. I have to do it myself. That explains the faint smell of vampire blood in the apartment. Otherwise, how can I invite friends for tea? They'll ask questions if I have runes all over my walls. It doesn't look like a Christian home anymore. The girl who was here earlier, was her name Juno? Yes, that's right. A pretty name, I suppose. She was just the kind of girl Agathon used to fall for. She was a vampire too, I expect. I'm just gonna keep trying to play it off. No, she was just a girl. Agathon is upset that she came here because of their personal history. Just a girl. I'm too old for these pretenses. Or is masquerade the word you people use? Agathon returns to the living room, still agitated. She wanted to send a message. If we don't let her find the notes first, she'll hurt my abuela. He glances meaningfully at the old woman. No, she won't. She gave me a message for you, Javi. She said to think very carefully whether your clan will really protect your loved ones. Agathon stares at Sylvia, stunned and confused. She was here to tell me that? Maybe that's good. Doesn't sound like she wants to hurt you. She was a nice girl, I could tell. Oh, abuela. Shadow, let's go. This is all we can do here. You say your goodbyes and soon you're back outside, sitting in Agathon's car. What a catastrophe. To think Juno was there. The words trigger when a vampire enters the perimeter, so Juno was there just as I was doing the ritual in the park. I'll take you to your haven. Agathon starts the car and begins the drive towards Manhattan. He appears agitated, emotions coursing under his stoic face. Your grandmother seemed to be very well informed about vampires. Vampires in my family. Where the kindred go, tragedy follows. We know that as much as anyone. My parents were murdered by a thaumaturgical ritual. Hard to go back to the masquerade after that. Agathon is gripping the steering wheel harder than he should, although he's back to his usual careful driving style. I'm sorry this happened to your grandmother and that you have to fear for her safety. This is what it's like for all kindred who have a mortal they love. The thing is, if you don't want to lose your battle with the beast, you should probably hold on to those relationships anyway, even when it hurts. Agathon drops you off in front of your haven. The experience leaves you with disquieting thoughts. You met Agathon's grandmother under awkward circumstances, but he clearly loves her very much. You don't know enough about the world of the kindred to say whether that's normal or not. It seems to keep Agathon connected to the world in a way that feels alien for some of the other kindred you've met. Perhaps there's a lesson in that. Perhaps there is. Well, that was intense. Let's go see what other trouble we can get into. Yeah, I want to explore this more. Benoit Segal wants to meet you again at the cathedral. You wonder whether the mysterious priest will be there. You've started to look at churches differently since your last encounter with Benoit. You're not sure what happened inside, but it was unavoidably real. You felt it. When Benoit mentioned that being in the presence of Father Anthony's faith would eventually kill someone like you, an undead being, you believed him. It doesn't seem to be very common though. In New York, you pass thousands of people every night and none of them have made you feel so afraid and insignificant. If you were to encounter someone like Father Anthony in the subway or a nightclub, you would know. There are many churches in the 5 boroughs, and you're pretty sure most of them don't contain someone whose faith can touch you in this way. Yet you've become wary. They just might. Still, tonight the cathedral looks as before, a striking landmark acting as a symbol of faith for people who have no idea that vampires exist in their midst. For them, questions of faith and myth are theoretical or philosophical. For you, those same questions suddenly define the meaning of your new existence. You sneak into the cathedral like an old hand, as if going to church had been a regular part of your life. Inside, the cathedral is almost deserted. You're not sure if you'll be meeting Benoit alone. The idea of feeling Father Anthony's faith on your undead flesh freezes you with terror. Benoit is waiting for you in the front pews of the cathedral, in the exact same spot where you saw Father Anthony. Worried, you approach, but you don't feel the touch of faith that shook you before. Benoit nods as you sit next to him in the pew. Are you worried about meeting here? What if your friend the priest returns? Don't worry, he's not here tonight. You've had some time to think. I'm guessing you found the touch of Father Anthony's faith hard to ignore. For most people, God's presence is a question of faith. When I talk with Father Anthony, it feels like proof. Benoit is fervent, intense as he speaks. It's clear these questions have consumed his existence. Perhaps they'll consume yours too. What do the kindred of the Camarilla believe? The old ones. It's true the elders are not always so good at teaching their children. Maybe the Camarilla would function better if we all knew these stories. Benoit looks around reflexively to make sure nobody is listening. There are only a few people in the enormous cathedral, and they don't seem to be interested in two loners murmuring to each other in the front pew. It might seem like ancient history, things that happened thousands of years ago, but time works differently for our kind. If the stories are true, there are Methuselahs still in existence who walked the earth when Jesus was alive. The only problem is that old vampires lie. They adjust history to suit their egos. It sure at least something was written down before the Masquerade was established. Of course, the Tremere have many interesting manuscripts in their libraries. I've seen a few. If you have the chance, I recommend looking at them. This is how the story goes. God cursed Cain as punishment for the murder of Abel. Cain walked the night shunned by humanity and drank blood to sustain himself. Even from the point of our origin, we are damned. However, the story becomes really interesting when we move forward. Cain creates more of our kind, often referred to as the second generation. They lived in the first city, later called Enoch, ruling openly over the city's human inhabitants. I see the first city as Cain's redemption. Cursed by God to wander, he remade himself as a ruler and lawgiver, acting as an immortal shepherd to humanity. It only started to go wrong when the second generation begat the third and vampires started to run amok. Vampires ruled openly over humans? Yes. According to the stories, Cain was a benevolent and just ruler, using his vast knowledge to bring a new age of prosperity. Of course, those stories were written by vampires. After the first city, Cain largely departs the story. Perhaps he was disheartened by the depredations of his descendants. That was a lot of alliteration there. The antediluvians went on to build a second city in imitation of the first, but it's doubtful their rule was just. There are people moving in the cathedral, and both you and Benoit have to make sure none get close enough to hear you talk. Many of the people you've seen have been elderly or disabled, so it's not surprising that you hear the squeak of a wheelchair. What alarms you more is that you overhear an older woman, speaking with a Russian accent, mention Father Anthony. Let's find Father Anthony and see if he can help us. From what I've heard, he's an exceptional man. Ugh. My Eastern European / Russian accent needs work. It's been a long time since I've done one. You turn to look and see two men and a woman. All three are in their 50s, clearly well worn by life. One of the men pushes the woman in the wheelchair. She's dark-haired and intense, seemingly only half in this world. Yeah, exceptional, but he doesn't like moles. The speaker is shorter of the men, the more animated and worried. He was probably a strong man in his youth, perhaps even an athlete. He carries a Midwestern accent. I fucked it up. We're only interested in whether he likes blank bodies. You and Benoit look at each other. This is bad news. Whoever these three are, they can't be good for you. Shit, are they Second Inquisition? We need to get out. Let's meet outside. I'm gonna do celerity. The blood grants you inhuman speed. You decide to run out before they have the chance to notice you. You keep low and run your way to the side, stopping to take in your surroundings once you're in the shadow of the mighty pillars holding up the roof. Benoit had the exact same escape plan as you did, and you share a look before you continue running. Speed doesn't equal invisibility. Not exactly. Still, none of the mortals inside the cathedral focus their attention on you. If they blink, you're already elsewhere. Another moment and you're outside, slowing down just in time to avoid looking suspicious as you emerge on the street. That was a close call. Who were those three? Did you recognize them? I might have. I'm not sure. There's talk of a few tenacious vampire hunters living in the city. One of them is supposed to be a woman in a wheelchair. For a second, Benoit looks at you as if he was wondering whether he should say something. There's one thing I've always wondered about the story of Cain. The traditions of the Camarilla put a lot of faith in the relationship between sire and child. You're supposed to follow the example of your maker, yet Cain didn't really seem to care for the vampires he embraced. Did he think it was a mistake to create our kind? My sire left me. Is that a common thing among the kindred? Yes, unfortunately. The kindred are selfish and cruel. You know, I'm Sophie's child and you're her protege. It's amazing that we share an appreciation for the mythologies of our kind, considering Sophie has little interest in questions of the spirit. You stare at Benoit. You knew there was something he wasn't telling you, but in all the talk of Cain and the First City, you forgot about it. Now the only question is, what does this mean? Does Sophie know her child is talking to you? Probably not. Don't hold it against me, but I admit finding some pleasure in seeing you suffer the effects of Father Anthony's faith. I suppose it's a demon in me. I understand that you're bitter, Benoit. I'm not your enemy. I'm sorry, I know that. It's just that sometimes I get too tempted by sin. You know, we should meet again. We've talked so much about myth, but maybe that's cowardly when the reality of faith is right in front of us. I'll introduce you to Father Anthony. You nod, unsure of whether that's a good idea. Benoit walks away and you follow his example, not wanting to hang around the cathedral any longer. Alright. Well, both that and the Agathon stuff was intense. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that episode there. That felt good. That felt meaty. There was a lot on that one. So, thank you guys so very much for watching the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, please consider subscribing. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.